That's probably what some people say, isn't it?
I love those when people just have no clue and they've said it their whole life.
Work in progress. That's a new one on me, but shall we give this a go?
Play the music. Let's talk. I don't have a lot to talk about.
You don't have a lot to talk about? Wait a minute. I need to make sure. Oh, see, I'm learning these things. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm doing the wrong one again. Look at that. One of these days, I will figure out.
One of these days, we'll have a producer.
I doubt it. That's really going to take some next level stuff that we're nowhere near.
One days we'll be sponsored. I just want to be sponsored by the donut shop on the corner. You just swing by and pick up some donuts every morning.
Are you talking down there at the
corner.
377 corner?
Yeah.
Is that a decent donut shop?
Yeah, they do a good job.
Okay.
They don't have cronuts, though.
That's right. You informed me of the importance of cronuts in the world.
Have you still not had?
I still have not had a cronut.
I'm going to try to make that happen for you.
I won't argue.
The only thing better than donuts is this weather.
This is pretty sweet.
This is
happening.
about as good as it comes. The wind has finally died down, so I've got a quick little story that has nothing to do with cycling for you.
But this is a podcast only about cycling, Bradford. We'll let you slide this time. What you got in mind?
You'll get a kick out of this. So the wind had finally died down, and all that tree fall, deadfall, and stuff that I had lined up over here. So it was finally a burn day before yesterday. So I did all the right things and logged my burn. And you have to, in where we live, you have to have a permit, and you have to log into the county and fill out a form with your permit number and log your burn. Basically, that just, in case they get a call, they can go, oh,
Yeah,
there's a
that's a
controlled burn.
permitted one.
Yeah. So, what's today? Today's Wednesday. So, Monday, I burned pretty much all day Monday. And a lot of that stuff was really green. So, once it caught, it was just smoldering. And I sprayed the perimeter and everything. And I just let it smolder all night. Yesterday morning, about 7:15, Argyle's Finest showed up at my front door claiming that they had gotten 15 calls about the smoke coming from my fire. And I was like, I logged my burn. And he goes, yeah, sometimes it doesn't go through. That's when I realized, oh, he's talking about today. I logged it for yesterday.
Oh.
But then at the same rate, I was thinking, you got 15 calls and then you finally came? Like, why didn't you come after the 3rd or 4th or 5th or 6th? What if my house was burning down? It took 15 calls to get you over here?
Because they were waiting for daylight to go around and see where the smoke was coming from?
But if the smoke was getting reported, how were the reports coming in? If they can see it, I don't know.
I think it was people smelling smoke.
Maybe.
More than likely. That would be my guess.
They did say it's just covering the golf course because there was no wind, and I guess the way
thermocline.
Yeah, it literally just looked like fog. There was just this blanket of smoke that was only like maybe 30 feet high. So
people are a little gun shy on grass fires and wildfires these days, deservedly.
That's fair. But it was just funny because the exchange that happened, I was like, it's just these stumps. They're just smoldering. He goes, yeah, but could you spray some water on them? And I go, you know that they're just going to smoke even more when I start to spray water on them. And he goes, yeah. And he goes, but if you're going to burn later more today, then don't put them all the way out. And I'm like, okay, what kind of mental gymnastics are we doing here?
Bureaucratic bullshit. He needs to be able to check off the box that he informed you, and you agreed that you were going to abide by his instructions.
It was just interesting.
Yeah.
So I sprayed it for a little bit, and then they left, and then I just logged onto the website and just logged the burn.
I saw the footprint of your burn out there on the way in.
I do that to burn in the bunny trail.
I assumed that was part of it.
and it's just a good place to burn. But this weather. There was a beautiful storm that rolled in last night after TNSS. Were you outside at all?
Nah.
You didn't see any of that?
I heard rumbles off in the distance, and it chased Dixie upstairs.
It was huge, like thunderheads, and there was just lightning all throughout the clouds, and it was so cool. And the temperature just dropped, and then it began to rain. We didn't get much while we were there, but it dispersed everybody earlier than normal.
Gotcha.
But
yeah, we didn't get any rain last night at my place.
Yeah, I would not mind a little bit of rain. North Shore needs a little rain.
I think everything needs some rain.
Yeah.
So
it's crazy how we either have too much rain or not enough rain.
You know what ends droughts, don't you?
Did you get a new bike?
Floods and droughts.
Oh, floods.
People talk about average rainfall and average lake levels and stuff like that. It's like, no, it's never this nice increment. No, you're either down here or the flood's coming its way up here.
That's true.
But
I thought buying new bikes ended drought.
I guess mountain bikes do. But those of us that are not mountain bike centric, it doesn't have as much effect on things when you can ride all weather. But going back to burn bans and fires and stuff like that, we didn't really get a chance to talk about it last week because our focus was pretty much on the movie.
That's true.
But we talked about it a little bit. Pre-show production was what Mid-South ran into.
Yeah.
I hate to put the label on it, but we touched on it a little bit. It's almost like you could say bad luck Bobby.
Dude.
As much stuff as the Mid-South has weathered.
I think Bobby's the one that needs a hug.
I tell you what, they've had so many things they've been up against. But that said, outside of what we chatted about and what I saw on the front end on the Mid-South, basically being shut down due to wildfires, I haven't heard or really looked into much else after that.
I'm not even aware of what the damage level was like. I just know that there were wildfires burning, and there was obviously the wind was making it increasingly difficult, but it made perfect sense to cancel the race because not only for the safety of the riders, but for the accessibility and serviceability of the fires.
Yep.
Responders trying to get to areas. Can't imagine you're trying to run. I don't know what the attendance is on Land Run now. It's got to be close to 1,000.
Mid-South.
Oh yeah, fuck me, whatever. Mid-South, it's got to be close. It's 1,000 people.
Oh, it's well over. They were talking 4,000.
Oh shit!
Those were numbers they were throwing out there going into this year's event.
Can you imagine having that many cyclists strung out all across back roads and stuff?
No.
And you got first responders and firefighters trying to get to actual fires.
I will say this about the Mid-South and what Bobby's been through, and I don't wish it on anyone. Nobody take this as Kevin going, oh, they got what they deserve. Not in the least. My learnings from everything that they've been through with that event over the years, it just reinforces why I have no ambition to take anything of mine to those levels. My head and my heart would explode if I went through the stuff that Bobby's been through.
Yeah.
On his different events over the years.
Did he have these issues when it was still called the other name that we're not allowed to say?
Yeah. We can still say Land Run, but if we're going to say what it's called now, or if we're going to address it specifically. But so, year one, the inaugural event, they established basically their reputation as the mud event.
The mud run,
of the gravel world. If I remember right, year two was almost perfect conditions. And then year three was I think it was the worst mud year, but that was also the freezing mud year, if I remember right. So that one, there were less than positive reviews from a lot of people, but also a lot of people took that as proof of their perseverance and proof of their endurance and proof of their capabilities. So I think that third year really established that reputation of what the then Land Run, what became the Mid-South, was going to be. And I think over the years since then, almost every year, there was mud involved. And they were even getting to the point where they were going to create mud holes to make sure.
Was that just rumor or was that based in some actual? Because I took it as almost tongue in cheek. Because
No, they routed through a mud
okay,
pit
see, I didn't know that. That's why I'm asking.
in a couple years, and they may still do it. I honestly don't know. There's been some turmoil, and you're an example-ish of that. You just bring it to light around the name change as well. Land Run to Mid-South created some controversy with the name change
Right.
as well. And then they were the event in 2020 that literally got caught up in the middle of the COVID shutdown. That happened the weekend of the Mid-South when the country shut down out unexpectedly to everybody, when it was just those dominoes that fell so fast that week when the country shut down, and the Mid-South got caught up in the middle of that, and they had public relations stuff to deal with as a result of that one. I'm not saying one way or the other what they did or what they should have done, what was right, what was wrong. It was just part of what they had to deal with. And now I think they didn't have a 21 event. I can't remember for certain. I'm not positive of that. I know 21 was a flux year for a lot of us. And
It just, I've never been, and I think part of it is I'm the guy that if everybody throws a big fit about something, I'm eh. And so, like, the first couple of years, it was like, you gotta go, you gotta go. I was like, but it's just 100 miles of gravel in Oklahoma. What's the big deal? And then I increasingly heard, like, it's about the event, the atmosphere, the people, the setup, the town, like, all the things you want to hear. And I still haven't made it. And I need to go up there and do it. But it almost, maybe this is a poor comparison, but it almost feels like hotter than hell for gravel. Like, it's like this.
this is a much bigger show than Hotter Than Hell.
Oh, yeah.
It's much bigger.
Yeah. But it's like everybody's just gravel experience for the year, it seems like.
I'm gonna hand it to Bobby in that I don't have any insider knowledge, but just the way the business of these bigger events was going over the years, I have some suppositions of things he's had to deal with or opportunities he may have had along the way. I from everything I can tell, Mid-South, I keep saying Bobby. I know it's more than Bobby that are putting it on, but there's no doubt that he's the front of the row of bowling pins there. They seem to be the truest to the spirit of gravel, for lack of a better term, the roots of gravel events that have gone mega sized.
Yeah.
Everything else is a lot more polished, is definitely not the word. I think Bobby probably puts on the best show of anybody that's out there and gives people more bang for the buck than anybody that's out there from anything I've seen. But there's
Keeping it real.
keeping it real.
Yeah.
They're still flying their flag of independence
Yeah.
thing.
But it's not a lifetime event.
No,
Why did I think of
it's
that?
unaffiliated.
So I guess that was, I think I speculated at some point that they changed the name in an effort to be more marketable, because that was when the whole Lifetime was acquiring events, and that was when Lifetime went into Kansas for the with Unbound. And so I was thinking that, I don't know why I just filed that away as fact.
I wouldn't be shocked if marketability was part of it. I know just from conversations Bobby and I had years before the name change, I know that was something that was under consideration well before the Lifetime moves.
Okay.
So I'm going to defer and lean on, I think the majority of it was for the reason stated about it being more supportive to the community as a whole. I think that was the intent of the name change. And I don't dispute that approach myself.
Yeah.
But my big takeaway from it is, so we had Mid-South 2025 canceled.
The running race still happened. There were people that were pulled off the course, but there were people that completed.
There were people that completed. I don't follow the running stuff at all.
No, it's not that nothing happened at Mid-South. That's what I'm just trying to establish. The running portion still happened for the most part.
I was starting to go off on a slightly different tangent.
Oh, my bad.
No, nothing.
Carry on.
No, it was my bad because obviously I didn't effectively communicate where I was going in our pre-production show notes.
I'm bad at picking up on segues anyways.
But the Mid-South 2025 was canceled. Tusher in the Crusher or in the Tusher or Crusher in the Tusher.
Yeah.
Was canceled last year.
That was Fires, right?
I can't remember what that was.
I think it was Fires.
But that one was a lifetime event, and that one was part of the Grand Prix.
And then Valley of Tears this year was cut short twice.
Valley of Tears was,
I think it was twice that
cut
they
short, and lots of no-shows for it. And that was definitely a national level race event.
Yeah.
Mid-South is definitely a national level race event, but it's unofficial because it's not part of the Grand Prix.
Yeah.
But lots of people use that as their tune-up race.
Yeah.
And now Valley of Tears is one to slide into that role as well. I feel like there was something. Did the Trinidad one have an issue last year, or?
I can't remember.
I feel like there was another one. These are major national level events.
Yeah. But you can't plan for all of these things.
Well, it's nuts. I would literally be banging my head against a wall trying to deal with that sort of thing at those levels. Even when I'm doing a 150 or 200 person event, it's disconcerting enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I can. And the thing is, I have the fortune of knowing you over the years. And so I feel your pain, and I also feel it from the other side too, from the participants. But it's almost, I don't know, I don't want to use the wrong word, but it's almost humorous to see the people that were fussing about the cancellation of Mid-South this year. Talking about, I saw one guy in particular just talk about how much money he's wasted on Mid-South over the years. And he actually put a dollar value to it. And I was like, I couldn't help but think, you're upset, but how do you think Bobby feels? You're one person. He's worried about 4,000.
Right. I'm not going to diminish that person's point, though, because I don't know exactly who you're talking about. I don't
know the guy either.
I don't know the dollar amount that you're referring to. No, you can't blame Mid-South for it.
Yeah.
So I don't want it to sound like, but I agree with the premise of, and we talked about it before. It's why I quit going to the Ouachita Challenge. I was wasting so much money on basically weather is always a factor.
Should have been doing it single speed.
Okay. For me to have fun,
Yeah.
to ride something like that, I don't want to do it single speed.
Yeah.
But that's not Ouachita Challenge's fault. But that said, technically they don't exist anymore.
This coming weekend is the final
edition.
Final edition as far as the current iteration of Ouachita Challenge.
Understood.
I have it on good authority that the torch is gonna be passed and carried on.
Probably.
But I never had any issues at Ouachita Challenge. There was rain maybe a couple of years, but not like a deluge or anything. And yeah, we had to do creek crossings and stuff, but I didn't have any major issues.
Yeah, I had 2 years with just totally gummed up mud years that tore up bottom bracket. Basically every bearing on the bike was trashed.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. And derailleurs, brake pads, all the good stuff. So I had 2 years of that, and then I think I had 1 year, and both of those years, it wasn't raining during the event. It was basically a lot of rain the week before.
Yeah.
And then 1 year, I think the third year, it was raining that year.
At the start.
Yeah.
I remember one year.
And I just pulled the plug on. I'm not trashing the bike again. It's just not. And so that in my head, that was a wasted money year because
Yeah.
I paid all the rentals and everything like that.
Yeah.
Again, nothing on the event, but what I'm saying is the person is talking about Mid-South costing them that much money. I recognize that logic, and that definitely comes into play with the type of riding I do.
Yeah.
I'm an events promoter. I don't go to a lot of events.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I was listening to the Bonk Brothers' most recent podcast, and they were talking about an individual that they knew that flew all the way in from Finland, I think. Norway, Finland.
Nordic Trailblazer guy?
I don't know who it was. I can't remember the guy's name. But he flew in.
I bet it's the Nordic Trailblazer guy. He's the guy that won Texas Twister for us last year.
But he flew in for Valley of the Tears.
Yep.
And I think his fork was messed up, and so he couldn't ride Valley of the Tears. He got that fixed and was going to do Mid-South, and then Mid-South got canceled.
Mid-South got canceled.
So he basically flew in for 2 races that didn't happen for him, both for completely different reasons. And then I couldn't help but think about what were all of his costs incurred and to go home with, like they said on Monk Brothers, with 0 race miles under his belt.
Right. I should be able to remember the guy's name, but I'm a senior citizen now, so.
Are you really?
Close enough.
Is it?
They keep sending me shit. I guess I can join. I don't know.
I've been getting that since I was 30.
About to say.
I'm like, I think they just send it to you if you have a social security number.
But if it is the Nordic Trailblazer guy, and I apologize, Nordic Trailblazer, I can't remember your name. I'm pretty sure he flies in, but he stays through Unbound. So he's hanging out with the Cadence Cyclery guys, and they're sort of his sponsors in the U.S.
All the Chads?
Sure. Yeah. They're all Chad. Go Chad.
Go Chad.
But maybe it's somebody completely different from that.
You're probably right. So the Taipei cycling show in Taipei, I guess it's China, opens today. Oh, it's in Taiwan. My bad.
Soon to be China.
I don't want to get into all that. I don't know how any of that.
I don't either.
I don't understand any of that.
But anyway, the Taipei bicycle show.
And you better bet that there will be some cool stuff coming out of here. Particularly on the e-bike faction, because there is a lot of electronic stuff that's going to be debuted there. Obviously makes sense, but in fact, where did that article go? I was just seeing that, Gary Fisher debuts fast-charging Morel e-bike at Sea Otter next month. But the article comes from Taipei, Taiwan. It says Gary Fisher's e-bike startup brand, Morel Bikes, will debut at the Sea Otter Classic next month. But they're saying that it takes 15 minutes to fast charge the battery. That seems the law of thermodynamics is going to make the battery catch on fire.
I definitely want to see more detail on that one.
It doesn't give a lot of specifics, but it does say...
Oh, damn it. I left my mouse on the charger at home. Hopefully it doesn't blow up.
Yeah. But this says they're referencing somebody previous in the article. We're not in a rush to put out a piece of garbage. I don't want to call us a game changer. Definitely a habit changer. We have the habit of plugging our e-bikes in overnight, which I get that.
I try to make a point to have it done charging before I go to bed.
Yeah. But this says Hayes, a battery scientist, was the director of product development at Ion Blocks, a battery technology company manufacturing batteries for aviation and other applications. That's the thing I don't want, is an e-plane.
They're already out there.
Yeah, that worries me.
I mean, it's got to be a 15-minute fast charge for 30% capacity or something.
Yeah,
it can't be a full charge.
It doesn't give the full breakdown. It just says a 15-minute fast charging battery. And that's a standalone sentence outside of all the other paragraphs. So I don't know. I'll be interested to hear more about it because I think that's battery life, charging, and just weight of batteries are the main things holding back e-bikes to some extent. Not that they're being held back.
E-bike sales are way down too, but have you seen the numbers for Giant and Specialized and Trek for last?
No, but the market has got to be reaching the saturation point.
Yeah.
You've got them coming in from every direction.
Yeah, Giant's profits were down 60% last year.
Wow.
And that's Giant.
Yeah.
And it's supposedly Trek and Specialized both had to recruit outside investors of some sort to help them weather the storm.
If you think about it, though, let's just take a company like Trek. Their breadth of products is gigantic anyways. And I know they feel obligated to be in the e-bike sector. It's one of the fastest at the time, or probably still is, one of the fastest trending sectors of cycling. But the fact is, Trek has all these other things that fits in their niche. And they don't have a lot of competition from all of these other companies that are bringing. I'm trying to think of the right way to say this, but in the e-bike category, you have everybody bringing e-bikes to the market. There's an e-bike for almost every category: cargo, city bike, road bike, gravel bike, mountain bike,
Sure.
Any kind of bike you
Sure.
can possibly name. There is an E category.
Sure.
And it's just the market's going to get saturated even quicker with e-bikes because there's so many players in the e-bike market.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm saying that.
I guess I'm not quite following what you were getting at. So you're saying Trek shouldn't be in the e-bike market, or?
That's what I'm saying. I don't know how many e-bikes Trek tries to, how many different lines of e-bikes they have. But it seems like if you're a company, maybe Specialized would have been a better one to say because they are specialized. It seems like if you're a company like Trek, you wouldn't be worried about, and I don't know if they are, maybe I'm just talking out of my ass like I normally do.
I'll be honest with you, you've completely lost me.
What I'm saying is maybe they should stick to like their higher end category and maybe a couple of tiers down instead of trying to do road and gravel and city and touring and everything else.
So who should be focused on the e-bikes then, if not Trek and Specialized?
I don't know. Maybe I'm just being ridiculous.
No, I think it's a fair assumption is that the vast majority of e-bikes that are out there are Trek and Specialized right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that would be my guess.
Yeah, they have I mean, if you're Trek, why do you have to put this out? I don't even know what this is. I guess this is
It's like a cargo bike.
city
E-cargo
cargo, but it's got smaller wheels, and there's some Taiwanese company that's making this and selling it for $1,000. As Trek, why do you feel the need to just have your name on something like that? That's what I don't understand, and that's obviously why I'm not in marketing and sales and all this stuff too.
Yeah, I think along those lines, once you start getting into the niche style bikes, maybe there's a fair point that if you're a major brand, maybe something that's super nichey like that, you do defer to the specialist maker, not the specialized maker.
Right. That's all. I mean, I said it all messed up.
I don't think e-bikes are nichey though. An e-mountain bike like what you took on your trips.
But I mean, like this, why does Trek feel obligated to make a step over ladies' city bike at $3,700? Like the amount of research and development and marketing and decisions that had to be made and everything for them to bring this to market.
But ultimately that is the bicycle industry in a nutshell right there. 3 years ago, that made all the sense in the world based on the current market at that time.
Yeah, and I guess it's easy to judge in retrospect. Hindsight's 50-50, right? I don't know. Like I said, maybe it's easy to criticize like that, but it seems like they were just throwing everything they had.
I think the big players like that were the ones that had the horsepower to make things happen when the whole supply chain was been clogged. And so the little niche makers couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
And so these guys, Giant, Specialized, Trek, probably a couple of the other bigger ones out there, I don't think they were looking at it. This is our opportunity to smush everybody else. We just got to cover all the bases now because we can do everything and nobody else can. And it probably helped them with, we need to find to get this wheel manufacturer. They want us to take all their 20-inch wheels too. So we need to find something else that we can put 20-inch wheels. Who knows how all that stuff works at those levels. But the nuts and the bolts of it right now are those big manufacturers are up against the wall right now.
It just, maybe I'm thinking about it all wrong. It just seems greedy. And it seems like they tried to fill every possible niche they could. And it seems, maybe I don't know what Trek's lane is. Maybe they are just, we're going to do.
Trek's lane is everything.
Everything.
That's always been their lane.
Yeah. I don't know.
Particularly when you're going to these Trek stores, but it's proving to be a difficult model right now. How difficult? I don't know. It seems like Specialized is having more issues than the others, but what I've been telling you for almost 2 years now, the rumblings are that there's somebody big in huge trouble. Now it looks like at least two of the biggest are in huge trouble right now.
Yeah.
Are they going to survive? Who knows at this point? The market's going to be different.
Quantum computing's going to save everything.
Yeah, most likely.
And AI.
Well, AI already has.
Yeah.
So thank God for AI. Or Lord knows where we'd be right now. Now you had mentioned the Gary Fisher e-bike. So is Gary Fisher not Trek any longer?
Nah, he left. It said it in the article.
So he's doing Fisher bikes again, or how does that work?
So the name of the bike is Morel, the bike line.
Okay.
Morelle.
So what is Fisher's relationship to them?
He is Gary Fisher's e-bike startup brand, Morel Bikes.
Okay.
Will debut at the Sea Otter Classic next
probably
month.
His 20 years is up. Is what
it says Fisher, who left Trek Bicycles in 2022.
Okay, the 20 years was up then.
Yeah.
Okay.
And is head developer of Morel.
20 years and then the 3-year no compete after that.
You think that's what it was?
Probably, yeah.
He's I don't know if you've ever met Gary Fisher.
I have not.
He is a intentionally eccentric person.
Oh, yeah. He's definitely a character.
Yeah.
I've seen plenty of interviews with him and things like that, but I haven't met him in person.
He wears full-blown ska-looking red plaid matching suits with vests and big glasses and hats, and he is a caricature almost.
Yes.
But he's also arguably one of the fathers of the 29er. He's a legend in mountain biking history, but he's such a weird guy. But great art comes from strange people.
I think he leans towards the artistic side.
Yes. Art? Are you saying artistic?
Yes, that is what I said. That is what I said.
Just clarifying. And then Bontrager has been completely dropped from Trek 2. That was part of them paring down. And then wasn't it Trek that we were talking about? They dropped 25% of their SKUs. Yeah. And I think that may have been associated with Bontrager.
A lot of it was.
I always mess this word.
I always say Bontrager.
Bontrager, yeah.
That's the way I always say it. Yeah. I'll take either way.
It's one of those words I've read more than I've said.
But they still have components under that name.
But are they new components, or are they just purging
I can't speak to
stock?
that. Like, they're still showing, Bonte wheels are still showing up on their bikes and stuff like that. So
I think that's just an in-house branding thing, just to spread.
Understood.
I think that's more of covering their ass. If they decide to fold, they can just say, this stuff is with a different faction or
Maybe.
whatever.
Maybe all that stuff is well outside.
But it just
my
seems interesting that they would cut all these SKUs and then at the same time they're bringing back or making. There was literally, I think there was 73 e-bikes on their site.
Yeah, but
know?
those were developed 2 and 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's what all of these manufacturers are caught up in. They did those huge orders and expansions in the middle of the COVID rush.
Yeah.
And it all fell apart after that, but they all had their commitments and everything.
Can you imagine trying to project stuff in the middle of that storm and being like, okay, 3 years from now, here's where the cycling industry is going to be?
But realistically, it applies to everything.
Yeah.
And it's what I've been saying for a while now. Maybe fortunate's definitely not the right word, but I think our little niche in the cycling industry is getting a microscopic view because of how niche-y our stuff is of what the long-term impacts of all that is. This spillover is going to every industry.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's amplified in the cycling industry and a few others for various reasons. And I'm still convinced that our world's going to be upside down by 2030 from what we knew prior to 2020.
You're talking about from cycling or just in general?
Just in general. Just the way business is done, the way people go to work, the way everything operates.
Not a joke here, but it's largely due to AI, right?
I think that's a major contributor, but it's all a net result of COVID and that COVID period. Yeah. That was the flick of the switch. 100 years from now, the world's going to be looked at pre-COVID and post-COVID. It
really did disrupt so much stuff.
It was a hard reset, and we don't know what that looks like yet.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's a positive. I'm not saying it's a negative. It's different. And that's what I'm saying. I think what we're going through with the bicycle industry right now, when it sorts out to what it's going to be 5 years from now, it's going to give us a better indicator of what everything else is going to look like 10 years after that sort of thing, if that makes any sense whatsoever. And I'll be honest with you, I think we touched on it a couple weeks ago or maybe last week a little bit. One of the news stories we talked about was we talked about Intense and their new semi-direct-to-consumer model, and Scott had released a headline themselves, and I was hoping we'd be able to talk to somebody about that. Hasn't happened yet, but now that Scott released some more stuff, and they're still going to do their dealer preferred semi-direct to consumer, but they're going all in with like Backcountry and Jensen and everything. So they're focusing even more on direct to consumer. And so Scott has to do what they have to do to take care of them.
Yeah.
I was getting excited by the prospect of a better marriage of direct to consumer and the local bike shop. I think that's a pipe dream. It's not going to happen. But I don't think direct to consumer is the right solution either. It's going to take a few years to figure out what works.
I think for the experience I have with cycling, I could do a direct consumer thing because I've amassed tools and skills and I have a bike stand and I know my way around a bike. But the turn on all of that is I would rather do business with my local bike shop.
And you are in the minority of bicycle owners.
Yeah. That's fair. And that's what I was getting at. Like for a direct to consumer kind of situation. Here, you want some coffee?
Yeah, please.
For a direct to consumer kind of situation. I don't know if we did that. It's niche upon niche, like you like to say. For someone that's getting their second bike, it's not a good fit. For someone that's getting their first bike, it's not a good fit. I think before any of that happens, you have to have a good relationship with your local bike shop. And you have to amass some sort of maintenance and serviceability and mechanic know-how.
But that's not happening.
No, that's what I'm saying.
It's not being encouraged by the manufacturers either, because they don't want to create any potential impediment to their sales process.
Yeah.
If you're the manufacturer that at checkout, we highly recommend you send your bike to ABC Bike Shop located within 15 minutes of your home.
Yeah.
We can ship it there, and for an extra $75, to throw that in there, people are just going to go, I'm not buying that one. I'll go to the Canyon, or whoever will just ship it to my door. That's what...
But do you remember...
Friction's the word I was thinking of.
15-ish years ago, if you wanted a badass computer, you went to Fry's and you bought every component, including the case and the motherboard and the chip and all that stuff. And you had to solder it together, and you had to know what the hell you were doing.
Right.
And then now you can go into the store and you can buy a computer that's 10 times what those were back then off the shelf. Yet you can still buy all the individual components, and they're just, I hate to say press and play, but it's
plug and play.
Plug and play, yeah. But you just click everything together and plug it in, and it works. And I think there's some kind of similarities in what the cycling world's going through right now. Like, it started backwards from the computer industry, where it was just whole bikes, and then it got to, you can build a badass bike if you buy every individual piece. And then it got to the point where you can go in and spend a gob of money and buy a better bike than you can almost build, less a couple of components that they've overlooked or intentionally cut corners on. And then when you get to now where we are, where you can just have something sent directly to you, just some assembly required, and you can get it for, I would guess, cheaper than you can get it from a retail location, because they don't have the overhead. So it's going to be interesting to see. It's obviously going to affect the local bike shop market, because we're not just seeing it from one or two or three people.
No, there's
Specialized is even getting into this market.
They're having big troubles with it. And people have been talking about it for a couple of years now, but yeah, I think we're definitely going over the top. There needs to be a new bike shop model. Generally, the bike shops themselves are going to have to find a way to adapt to it. Some are finding their niche, but it's a constant process right now.
I think right now, if I was a 21-year-old cyclist and I had mechanic ability, I would set up, I would take out a loan and I would set up a mobile bike shop.
I've only seen one that's made it.
Yeah. But I think the time is ripe.
Maybe that's.
If I could come to your house and assemble your bike for you for $50.
Well, hey, if you could do it for $50, I would be shocked. You can't make a living driving to somebody's house putting together bikes for $50.
But you've got to layer other stuff in.
That's
the problem is.
Understood.
When I start thinking of a pared down a bike shop, and like in a perfect world, you would have a bike shop that only did service and assembly and labor. But you can't do that in a vacuum. You have to have parts.
Right.
You can't get someone's bike and go, oh, I can get that part. It'll be here a week from now or 2 weeks from now. Now you're the garage in the middle of nowhere and your car's broke down. So and then you're not going to sustain yourself off of that. You've got to be able to sell water bottles and then maybe hats. And then, oh, do we do jerseys and T-shirts? And, oh, what about handlebars? And are we going to do bike fits? Then we got to have saddles and grips. And where do you stop? Even if you're a small bike shop, you still have to have a fairly sizable inventory.
I think the better question is, where do you start? And I think that's what the next level of what somebody's going to be and it's already happening. We're not seeing it on a mass scale.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to start what the next generation of bike shop looks like. And in my head, that's why I was getting excited by the Scott and the Intense setup, and the potential, because that I could see that working into that mobile model that you're talking about, where if I'm a wrench in a van and I can go anywhere. If I'm able to work directly with Scott, Intense, Cannondale, Specialized, Trek, Yeti, whoever else, where Brad Green decides he wants a new bike and he orders it, that new bike is going to be delivered to his house and assembled by Kevin's bike shop. And that's just worked into that cost.
But it would be cooler if you were the mobile mechanic and the bike got delivered to your house and then you assembled it and brought it to my house fully built.
That's what I just said.
Oh, okay. Okay.
If it didn't come across that way, I apologize.
It's okay.
That's basically
Yeah.
Basically what I was saying. Yeah, it's delivered to me.
Yeah. That's a cool business model right there. And think about if you had a hauler that you could put like 10 bikes on. And so you get...
You put together a route.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the way.
And once again, that works because we're in DFW. On paper. It only works if 1 or 2 people are doing it. If you got 7 people doing it, now all of a sudden you're like...
And it could be argued that's the problem with bike shops in general. There's too many of them.
Yeah.
That could be argued.
Yeah. And there's an ebb and a flow.
There is an ebb and... Yeah, what you said. Ultimately, it's an issue with the bicycle industry, but it doesn't affect us as cyclists per se. We've still got places to ride bikes. We've still got bikes to ride. We can still get parts that maybe we can figure out how to do ourselves watching a YouTube video, or we do have a bike shop that I can run it by there real quick and they can swap this part. We're still going to be able to ride bikes. That part of it is good. Ultimately, the question is, what does it look like to buy and service a bike 5 years from now? I think that's going to be different. That's all I'm getting at. I don't know what it's going to look like.
Definitely it's going to be different.
There were also reports, the numbers were actually pretty good for whatever reasons, that there was essentially growth in cycling last year in the United States. It was like up 10% in actual cyclists riding bikes. A big chunk of that was actually youth riders as well. And
that makes me happy.
10 to 17-year-olds were the biggest growth.
I wonder if NICA has anything to do with that. I say that just because...
that age group would fall into that.
Yeah, because last night was... I don't know if it was the first, but it was the first time I've seen NICA out at North Shore on a Tuesday, but I wasn't there last week.
I thought that was their regular thing, was to do...
Yeah, but it's seasonal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you meant this year.
And so I was just like, it just makes my heart so happy to see all of these kids on mountain bikes at a mountain bike trail and having a blast, and to see all the dads that are involved. It's super cool. And it's just a cool environment. And I just love that kids are outside doing stuff. So, oops. And it's not team sport.
Yeah. So when the NICA group is, how many kids is that's out there on a Tuesday night, which is rough guess?
25-ish.
Okay. Are they all riding together in a train, or is it different groups are doing different things? Or
I think it naturally breaks down to like probably an A and a B group, but there's some of those kids are... Youth is the strongest motor, period. And if you can get over your own brain and, your fears, those kids are bulletproof. And so some of them just have no governor, and they just are stupid fast. And then I think the younger kids, or younger into it, are still trying to figure all that out. And the faster kids are on faster equipment because they're more seasoned, and they're getting, oh, you're going to be into this? Just like your model, Kevin. They started out on a cheaper bike, slower bike, arguably. And then once they showed a little commitment, and you're not going to just give this up, and this bike's not going to just collect dust, then dad or mom is going to invest a little bit more and get them a better bike. And those incremental steps make you a better rider, along with more hours in the saddle and more time. So it's just cool to see, especially over the course of a couple of years. I think this may be the third year that they've been doing it out there at North Shore on at least on a Tuesday night. So we've had some interaction with them, and I know a couple of the dads, so it's pretty cool. I'm a fan.
I am too, and there is no doubt that NICA has definitely stirred the pot for youth cycling over the past few years, and it's whenever youth cycling, youth initiatives are brought up, NICA is the go-to for the example. Look at what NICA is doing. Use that as a template. Ultimately, the cyclists, the juvenile cyclists that we all went through it, grow out of the bicycles. My question is how many of them are going to come back to it like we did, sort of thing. I'm not saying that as a negative. That's so far down the road.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how that happens. I didn't come back to riding a bike post-college until I was knocking on 40's door. It was a long time for me to get back to it. I wish I can look back on it now, and I wish I would have just stayed on a bike the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
Sort of thing. But it was just something that wasn't even in my head. But once it got in there, it's so entrenched in me now.
Yeah.
It's good.
Cycling, if you get truly bit by the bug, it's a lifelong thing.
I hit 60 this year, and I've decided that I'm going to...
Are you currently 60?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
I'm going to focus the last third of my life on riding bikes, playing with dogs, and enjoying good food and art with the people I love. That's what I'm going to focus on. But
I think we should all aspire to do something similar to that.
I think we all have.
Yeah.
But my wake up call was, yeah, that's my focus.
Right.
Now.
Yeah.
Those are always okay, we'll mix those in. Those are the focus.
I think in most serious cyclists' time, you go through different phases. I'm not a racer anymore. I was never much of a racer. I showed up to races.
Yep.
I participated in races. But that was just so I could ride with a group of people at a faster pace than I normally did. I was never the guy that trained for races and had aspirations of being on the podium. I'm not a fast guy. But if you want to ride all day, I'm your guy. I can go out and ride 6, 7, 8 hours. But I'm not fast at that either. I have a dumb head. I'm going to just keep going. But inevitably, I think cycling is about the culture. At the end of the day, we touched on this in skateboarding. When you meet another skater, you have a shared experience, even though you've never skated with them before. When you meet another cyclist, and it gets niche-y again, but when you meet another mountain biker, you have a somewhat shared experience. And there are levels to it, and there are different factions even within that. But like when you go to an event like Midnight Massacre, there is a certain shared experience when you cross the finish line. The person that has already finished and sees you finish, they know what you went through. You have this connection, even though you may not even know each other. When there's just something that carries over across cycling with that. When you start talking to seasoned cyclists and they're like, oh, I did this event, and you all of a sudden you just have a better idea of who they are. I don't know. I think you have to crush your ego a little bit to go through a lot of the stuff.
I don't disagree.
But you're going to disagree.
But I think things are starting to change from that shared experience model I think that used to be the case. It's still some of the case. I don't think the shared experience aspect of it, the culture, the community, it's not as universal as it used to be for various reasons. But it's stuff we've touched on before, where you've talked about back in the day, in order to put on an event, with USA Cycling, you had to be a club and organize the event.
Yeah.
And so it used to be there was the actual tangible community
Yeah.
of clubs and the regular weekly riding groups
Yeah.
and things like that. Those still exist, but where it used to be 90% of the adult cyclists were involved in one of those communities,
Yeah.
I would say maybe it's 20 or 30% these days.
Yeah.
The vast majority they're not riding in groups. They're not doing TNSS. They're not doing Sunday morning rambles with the same group every week.
Yeah.
I say that, but that does seem to evolve. What those people that weren't doing that 3-4 years ago, now they are finding a group of 5 or 6 other people that they are riding Boulder on a regular basis with each week or something like that. So it starts to evolve. I think we had a disconnect of several years, and what COVID played a part, but it started happening before then. The Enduro Bra and the e-bike evolution became part of that, where it didn't splinter things necessarily, but the culture did kind of drift in different directions, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. Mountain biking has been cut in every slice for a while now. And you're right. Enduro. I guess enduro is still a big deal, huh?
I don't think none of it's the big deal it used to be.
Yeah. Cross country's dead.
I mean, we're seeing it with the gravel events.
Yeah.
Now, the Oklahoma one was canceled this year. Jason with the Mississippi.
Which Oklahoma one?
Was the one first week of February. Was old? It's not old. Oklahoma Growler or something. I can't remember which one it was.
That's fair.
I mean, it was traditionally the one that was always after the week after the Texas Chainring Massacre.
Okay.
And they attended. I'm hearing that from a lot of gravel events. Rattlesnake's growing this year. Rattlesnake had a really good year, but most gravel events are struggling.
And what do you attribute that to? Is it cost? Is it travel? Is it locations?
There's all sorts of factors. I mean, there's the
lack of interest.
That's a simplistic.
Too many events.
Simplistic way. Lack of enthusiasm, I think, might be a better way to say it. Whereas a few years ago, maybe people were going to every single gravel event they possibly could.
It was insatiable.
Now they're being more selective about it. But I think part of that is where we started this conversation, and the writer that was talking about how much money they'd lost trying to do Mid-South over the years or whatever else. I think that there was definitely a COVID hangover on the event side of things, where a lot of people got burnt by events that canceled COVID year and 2021. And that created a lot of animosity from the participants.
Yeah.
Because, you canceled the race, but you're not giving me my money back, or you're not even offering me a free entry into next year's. I think most of us did stuff like that to accommodate as much as we could, but there were some events that just, we're screwed. Sorry, you're out your money. That created some animosity there. So people were gun shy for a while. They started to get back into it, but they also realized it's not as big a priority as I thought it was. And people got tired of having to commit 6 months in advance to do something.
Yeah.
They want to, I'm feeling it this week, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Because there's plenty of people that over the years have signed up for Unbound, made the commitment to it, used being accepted into Unbound as their carrot to train and be ready for it.
Or Leadville.
Or I'm just saying Unbound as an example.
Yeah, that's fair.
My bucket list event for the year is this.
Yeah.
And I'm using that as my carrot to train properly. And it gets there and you didn't train properly and you're not going to go there and you just spent $250 or whatever it is on an entry fee, and you may.
I've seen that for a lot of people for this year for Watchdog Challenge.
Yeah.
A lot of people signed up, made accommodations, and then now here it is the week of, and people are like, hey, do you want my entry?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, so I think it used to be when events were $60, $70, or even less than that, because I'm still under 50 on my stuff.
Yeah.
Hell, I'm free for Club Ministry members, but it was a different dynamic. It's on me if I sign up for something a few months down the road and I spent $50 on a sign up that I didn't train properly. That's okay. That's on me. But if I spend $200 on it and it's halfway across the country and I had to book these plane tickets that are only halfway refundable or whatever else, that all adds up. Or they had crappy weather and now it's a mud fest, or now it's canceled or whatever. I get that. And I think that's part of the attendance hangover for events in general. That's part of it. But quite frankly, I hate to say it, I think a lot of people, they're staying away from interacting with groups of people. They don't want to get caught up in just stupid bullshit where politics and religion and whatever else come up when you don't want it to. I just want to ride bikes. I hate to say it, but that is part of it. People are getting more closed in on who they're going to spend their time around these days.
Love is the answer.
Bikes is love.
Yeah.
Bikes is love. Our numbers for our events are good. We're already well over 300 signed up for Red River Riot, which that's the most signups we've had at this point for the Red River Riot, probably ever.
You have, that brings me to a question that I've been wanting to ask you. You're talking about people that sign up for events months in advance. What is your estimated percentage of people that sign up last minute, week of, for an event versus people that sign up as soon as the event is announced?
Yeah, so that
sure, it fluctuates, but
it does, and that's something that the way I do things, just for my own sanity, I diminish those last minute signups as much as possible, particularly for free events or very low cost events. As I can't be put in a position where, a week before the event we have 200 people signed up, because it takes that week to put all the pieces together for porta-johns, parking, whatever else.
I totally understand that.
And if that 200 people turns into 700 people in that, I can't accommodate that.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. So
do you put a physical cap on sign up when you create an event, or do you, like, say Red River Riot, for instance, historically you've had X number of people.
Right.
And so when you create the event, you mark it out on your calendar for this year. Do you go, okay, we're going to have maybe up to 350 people or whatever your number is.
Right.
And do you say, but we can't accommodate, I don't know where your insurance changes or whatever. You say we can't accommodate 450 and above. So do you put a physical cap on it, or how do you mitigate that?
So the way I typically do it for my larger events, Chainring Massacre, Red River Riot, Midnight Mash. Should I go back to Midnight Massacre or just keep it Midnight Mash? I don't know. We'll figure that out.
I like Midnight Massacre.
Understood. The way I do it for those may be different than the way I do it for smaller events. So for what I know are going to be my bigger events, what I typically do is set it up so the first 300 entries, however long that takes. So I plan on, this is going to be at least 300 people that show up for this. So the first 300 entries through that is free for Club Ministry members. And so I'll work my budget based on a 300 person event, and I'll do all my logistics based on that. And then the idea being that after 300, it'll be half price for Club Ministry members, which I do everything I can to encourage all the Club Ministry members to sign up early.
Yeah.
With the expectation that who will sign up after that 300 is mostly non-club members and newer riders and things like that. And I use those signups to basically cover the cost over the 300. And so whatever that 300 works out to, if it's week of the event, for example, before we sell out those 300, I'll cap it at that 300. But if we sell out 300 a month ahead of time, that gives me time to adjust and do other stuff.
That makes sense. It's comical how much our two
Parallel.
business models parallel. Yeah, because it's the same way. I have a not break even point, but I have a point where when I have 20
The
people,
intersection is here.
yeah, like when I have 20,
Flexibility goes up at this point.
yeah, like 20 person sitting, the last 3 people that sign up pay for all the groceries essentially. So it's interesting. I can appreciate that.
Yeah, and so what I typically do to round it all out is say, like I said, right now, Red River Riot, we're over the 300 and about 3 weeks to go, a little less than 3 weeks to go.
Yeah.
So this will be the momentum 3 weeks for revenue, because the vast majority of the people that sign up going forward will be not currently members, so they'll be paying full price. But I'll even cap that once we get to that last weekend prior to the event. If we're at, let's say we're at 400 at that point. I don't think we'll get there, but if let's say we're at 400.
What is your biggest event to date?
2020 Chainring Massacre.
Yeah. It was like 500.
It's almost 800.
Almost 800. I think I was there.
Maybe.
I know I was at one of your events when you said this is our biggest event ever.
Pretty much every Chainring Massacre we had up until that point was,
Yeah.
but that was completely intentional as well, because everything else I cap at my comfort level, which is basically 300. And if it's definitely a smaller event, I'll usually cap those at 125 to 150 ahead of time.
What changes between 300 and 500 though? That's what I have. If 300 is your comfort zone, then why does stretching it to 500? Does it just, you have to have more bodies? You have to have...
That's the simple answer there.
Yeah.
You need more people checking people in. There's just that many more participants to throw more variables into things out on course. Okay, like just a completely random variable that happened at a bigger event that I'm convinced never would have happened at a 200-person event. But we had 400 or 500 people for a Midnight Massacre one year. I think it was the first year we actually hosted out of Valley View Town Square proper for the Midnight Massacre. It was a hot as balls Midnight Massacre. It was like 110 degrees.
Yeah.
But that's why we do the Midnight Massacre. It's like we wait for the sun to go down, and that's how you ride your bikes a long time in August in Texas. This particular year, though, it was a big crowd, so that makes check-in longer, that makes the riders meeting longer, that makes all the pre-ride festivities longer, and it was 110 degrees out, and basically most of the riders drained their water bottles just hanging out in the town square before we started, or drank way too much of their water bottles or their Camelbacks or whatever else.
Prehydrated.
They were thirsty because it was hot out and
Yeah.
the sun was blazing. That particular year, the way we set up the water table was a figure 8 where they went by it once pretty early.
Oh, yeah.
But the idea was nobody's going to really use it then, but we had it there for people that were doing the beginner's route. It's like, all right, there's a water table there. You guys can hit it at mile 12 or 15 or whatever it is. But like maybe only 30 people will use the water table there. The idea was going to be that when they come back after and they'll hit it at mile 70 or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's when they'll really hit that water table again and use up. They wiped it out the first time around. Everybody went by there at mile 12 and raided the water tables. But on top of that, they were already so hot, people were taking the lids off the water jugs, filling their Camelbacks, dumping water all over the place. People were sticking their filthy gloved hands,
Some people's children.
with their water bottles just to fill them up because it was so early in the event. They didn't want to stop and wait for somebody else. They wanted to just scoop and go thing.
What's wrong with these people?
It turns into a herd mentality thing
Yeah.
at that point is what happens. But that's an example of once the numbers get bigger, the dynamic changes.
Yeah.
And that was a long way to get to that point, but I hope that illustrates that wouldn't have happened with a 150-person event. But the group dynamic changes as it gets bigger.
Yeah.
And for me, quite frankly, my biggest wake up call was the last big event that I actually attended. And
Can you say what that is?
it was the Mid-South.
Okay.
And this is not a negative on the Mid-South. This is not a negative on the show Bobby put on by any stretch of the imagination. That was the 2011 Dirty Kanza was what? Maybe 1,000 people? Maybe. It
was a lot of people.
It was a lot of people, but it was
one of the bigger events that I've been to.
Right. So that was the last time I'd done a big event.
Yeah.
Okay. So then I did the 2018 Mid-South, and I want to say that was a 2,000 person event, roughly, working from memory. So
that's got to be just maddening.
The only thing that would be comparable was Hotter Than Hell. And so I did Hotter Than Hell a few years, and I probably should have better leaned on that experience, but I just completely separated road rallies from gravel events. So I wasn't comparing the two in my head at all. And so I show up for the Mid-South 2018. I was actually really strong. I was best trained up I had definitely been probably in 10 years. And I wasn't trying to win anything. I was just going to go out and do a personal best for me. But I'm not going to be Strava Kevin or anything like that. I'm not going to be the guy that crowds up to the front and it's, you know what, I'll just hang back and just work my way through the crowd and be okay. Oh,
foreshadowing.
My God.
Yeah.
I had no clue how big a crowd that was, how big a clusterfuck that actually was with that many people. And yeah, I expected it for the first 5-6 miles. And I'm 30 miles in. And it hasn't and I'm chugging through the crowd.
Yeah.
And there's just so many idiots out there doing stupid shit. And there's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And everybody's being a dick about it. Hey, coming on your left. And, they're going to speed up now. Why are you doing that?
Yeah. Yeah, that Speaking of which, my last night I got punked basically. We were riding in a strong group and I just blew up. So I fell off and I'm still moving at a pretty good clip. And I hear somebody behind me go, "Rider back, rider." And I'm like getting over, trying to yield trail. And then he's right on me and he goes, "Rider back," or something like that. And I was like, "What do you want? Red carpet? Come around." And he's like, "Oh, I'm just messing with you." And it was my buddy Jenner and he was on an e-bike. And he actually rode behind me for a little bit. And I was like, we got to a road crossing or whatever. And I was like, go. I'm not going to get pushed anymore. But I was like, I was so caught off guard.
I get it. And that was me riding through that crowd. That was eye-opening for me. It's like, I don't want to put people through that. I get it that a huge event like that is what some people want to do. That's the experience people want. I get that.
Yeah. I think for a lot of people, though, that's a one and done thing. Or it's their only event of the year.
There is so much of that.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. That's my biggest. I'm not saying this from a promoter's perspective of, I wish more people would come to I'm not saying that at all.
Yeah.
It's my biggest heartache about the current gravel scene right now is so many people are so wrapped up in this event over here. That's how you gravel. That's how I'm going to do it. That's the only event I'm going to do. Or I hear from, hey, I'm going to such and such event. Any ideas on how to train for it and go ride this event? Oh no, that's not good enough for me for training purposes. Because I'm going to this real gravel event.
Yeah.
Okay, you got to ride gravel to train for gravel.
Yeah, it's funny because you go to. I did Hotter Than Hell 1 year, and the size of that event was just mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, it wasn't just a clusterfuck at the beginning. It was a clusterfuck the whole way.
Pretty close to the whole way.
Until you got to like mile 80 almost.
Yeah.
And
I was about to say 70.
Yeah. And there's just, it's evident that some of those people.
Oh, their whole year is built around just that.
That's their pinnacle.
Yeah.
And to the point where they just trained solo or with a small group for months leading up to the event. And they don't know how to ride in a pack. They don't know how to ride with all these people around them. They don't know how to indicate turns or how to pass or anything. And it's just like, you're a fish out of water. You may or may not have the fitness. And then they don't know how to fuel. Or I had a guy literally, we're pulling out of a rest area, one of the 1,000 rest areas at like mile 50 something. And he just cramps up and falls. Doesn't unclip or anything. Just like a bag of sackcrete, just boom on the ground right in front of me.
Yep.
I was just like, what are we doing out here?
I completely get it.
Yeah.
Motivations like that, when I first got back on the bike, were the keys for me too.
Oh, yeah. It's a carrot dangle for sure.
Yes. And those were the things that I learned the hard way.
Yeah.
I was fortunate that we had dirt dogs to get some relatively good information. And that, I think that's one of the biggest disconnects right now is we had online communities starting in 2000.
Yeah.
But it was this beautiful hybrid of an online community that interacted in person on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So you knew who was real, who was credible. Over time, you developed okay, this person does know what they're talking about, or this person's full of shit.
Right.
So you knew which resources to lean on or were valid and which ones weren't, and you were able to see it in person if they could back up what they were saying. Right now, we don't have that. Too many people are interacting on Facebook groups and Discords and Reddit chats and stuff like that, that people just want the attention of, here's my answer or here's my opinion on something, and based on what? But they've got a loud voice, so people listen to them, and there's a lot of bogus information out there. And quite frankly, that's a big direction that I'm shifting the spinistry stuff towards. I've been trying to for years, in that I've wanted to create some of those environments for newer riders to pick up knowledge and skills and experience and stuff like that. But we've talked about it before. The biggest problem with educating beginner riders, and it's your hotter than hell experience is a good example of it. None of those people that were having those issues you were talking about felt that they were beginners at that point.
Yeah.
You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, it's
so when I label stuff as a beginner clinic or a beginner ride or a beginner, the people that really need to be showing up for that aren't the ones that are showing up for it. They're the ones that think they can teach the beginners something.
Yeah. And what's funny is I have no problem showing up to a beginner event.
Well, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
That's the way it should be. My plan is to shift more towards the content side of things, where we're going to do videos and podcasts and stuff like that, and not necessarily position it as, here's beginner information. It's here's information.
Yeah.
Here's lessons. Here's things you can do to, oh, you're wanting to accomplish this? Here's a way you can do that. And let people position themselves as, is that something that's relevant for me or not? Because I've spun my wheels for years trying to, let's get that group of 25 people together and really do an intensive weekend. Even when we get them together, so every beginner's at a different level. And particularly when we start talking bikepacking and multi-day stuff.
Oh, yeah.
People really get hung up on, oh, I want to do my 100-mile a day bikepacking trip. Have you ever gone bikepacking? No, but I want to do 100 miles a day.
Yeah.
for 6 days.
Just because you can ride 100 miles doesn't mean you can ride 100 miles with all your stuff.
With all your stuff on routes you've never ridden on before and have no idea what's around the next turn.
And not forget something.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know. I just want to ride my bike. That's all I want to do. I want to hang out with cool people.
I love riding my bike.
And I want to have conversations.
So this is episode 99. What are we going to do for 100? Any ideas?
I don't know. I think we should ride our bike somewhere. We should bike pack with our... I'll carry all the gear.
That was the plan, but that got diminished, so...
I don't even want to get into that.
Okay, I don't know any of the details on that.
So silly.
So I'm not trying to pull that out right now.
No.
I was like, oh, this is the perfect episode 100.
Except for I wasn't going to be there.
Oh, I understand that now. Nobody...
Yeah.
I just assumed you were...
No, I have a dinner that weekend. But we are doing a team ride from my house the following day, the Sunday the 6th, I think it is.
Wait a minute. Okay, you have a dinner...
On the 5th.
On the 5th.
And then I'm doing a Big Pig team ride.
On the 6th.
On the 6th.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So you're going to be shopping on Thursday or the Wednesday?
Wednesday or Thursday, yeah. Usually Wednesday.
Could you shop on Thursday?
Yeah. Well, what are you thinking?
Maybe we go on a ride somewhere and take the podcast equipment and...
Yeah. I think that'd be fun.
And maybe collect some content for YouTube videos showing, look at my stuff and this is what you don't do for bike packing, and look at Brad's stuff and this is what you do.
You said dude.
I did. I have to think about that though. I might have to mooch your hammock from you for that. I can't sleep on the ground. I just can't do it.
If I put you in a real hammock, you would never want to sleep on the ground again.
Or maybe I'll just have stuff waiting for me.
Even with your Xped pad, I would argue that a hammock is more comfortable. But once again, you can't carry trees with you. That's why I have my tent coming.
Understood.
Yeah, I have multiple hammocks. In fact, I have a hammock that I would be more than happy to loan you to try out.
Let me think about that.
Yeah.
Let's see. So let's make that a tentative plan.
Okay.
Wednesday, 24-hour overnighter thing.
Oh. Maybe we should do it Tuesday.
We can't do that because you have TNSS.
I could blow off Tuesday night for an overnighter.
Okay. Yeah. That works even better for me, quite frankly. Yeah. I would rather do that.
In fact, you know what we could do, and what would be a lot of fun, is we could stage stuff.
That's what I'm thinking. See,
I got a better idea.
I think I'll stage stuff as a destination point.
That's fair. That's fair. We can figure it out.
We'll figure it. Let's.
We didn't even talk about the weather.
You did talk about the weather a little bit.
It's so amazing.
Let's flesh that one out over the course of a week.
Okay.
It's also going to be weather dependent as well.
Yes, for sure.
I'm not going out in the rain. Anything on your to-do list? Anything I missed?
No, I've got to jack with my pool, and then I'm going to work on bikes, and I'm going to go for a ride. Try to get in 2 or 3 hours today. I've been riding my bike almost every day.
Very good.
And I am just now back to, I don't feel like I'm dying every time I get on my bike.
Okay.
I have been feeling really good on the bike, and I don't know exactly what to attribute it to other than just time in the saddle. And I haven't been I went back this morning or last night and looked at my hours over the past couple of weeks, and nothing outlandish. Like last week, I think was my best week in the past 4 weeks, and I got like barely over 8 hours. So it wasn't anything crazy, but I'm trying to get to where I'm getting in 10 to 12 hours a week, and it's just carving out that amount of time with all of the stuff that falls on my plate.
Yep, I get that completely.
It's tough.
It's
tough.
Yeah, I'm back on the bike, kicked off week 1 this week for my next formal 12-week block of the riding every day methodology. But I'm throwing a new piece into it, though. I'm back on the rower. I think we talked about it.
I've been seeing your rowing. on Strava.
Yeah. And that's just for my own personal tracking.
Yeah.
So what we talked about it before, one of my big learnings last year was even when I'm riding every day, ultimately with my knees, I can't walk. So basically my only exercise is the bike. So if
Do you not use your knees when you row?
that's what I'm getting there.
Oh, my bad. I jumped ahead.
I can't walk. So I can't do weight bearing on the knees.
Yeah.
I'm even to the point I can't stand up in the kitchen to cook for more than 30 minutes sort of thing if I do that.
Sucks.
So there's no walking the dogs, there's no hiking, there's nothing like that right now. But, and I'm not saying that to complain, I love riding my bike. So I'm able to ride my bike. But what happens is when I'm not riding my bike, I am just sitting down or laying down. I'm pretty much sedentary when I'm not on the bike.
It's a bad place to be.
It is.
Yeah.
And I was hoping the bike would strengthen the knees where I could do more stuff. It doesn't work. They just can't take the weight is what it boils down to. In the past, I had tried the rower and that aggravated the knees as well. But that was also when I was just trying to do my traditional rowing workout, 30 to 60 minutes, high intensity and real workout shit, which that tears up the knees too, because that's a lot of force over.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing now is basically I'm making a point every hour-ish. That's my movement through the day. I get on the rower 4 to 6 times a day.
Yeah.
Sort of thing when I'm waiting for something to download or I'm waiting on a phone call or whatever else. It's like, okay, go do another 3/4 of a mile on the rower. Takes about 6 minutes. And that's some activity for that hour sort of thing. And wrap that up with the bicycle. I'm hoping between the two of it, that takes my overall activity level up to that next level. That'll help actually cut the weight down as well. Because it didn't happen with the bike last year. There's no doubt about that. So we'll figure it out. It's just too damn sedentary is ultimately what it boils down to. And I got to figure out a way not to. Ultimately, the way not to is get these knees replaced, but it's too early for that, unfortunately.
I'm telling you, I've said this. Have you looked into PRP?
I have.
And?
It doesn't look like it's a good fit for me.
Okay. It's been revolutionary for me.
Understood.
But it was also my back, not my knees.
My understanding is it doesn't work on the knees very well.
Yeah. Knees are so complicated. Knees and shoulders are like two of the...
Both my shoulders and both my knees are completely jacked.
They're so complicated. Such a complicated joint. It's so crazy. Anyways, we need to wrap this up. I want to get my list of stuff done so I can go ride my bike.
All right, so you're not riding your bike right now.
What do you mean? I can ride my bike right now. Or we can do my stuff and then go ride my bike.
Okay, all right. We'll figure that out as I'm tearing down.
Either way, I'm going to ride my bike.